Previously on Week Slam.
Alright, next week's activity is whittling from Molly. Hello and welcome to Week Slam with your host Sam, where the goal of my channel is to try out a new hobby, interest, or activity for 1 week straight and give you guys the progress update about what you can learn in 5 days. This week's viewer suggested activity is woodcarving.
Out of every activity we've ever tried, woodcarving is the oldest by far. It's believed that woodcarving has been around since the days of Adam and Eve through walking sticks, clubs, and other basic tools, with the first written mention in the book of Exodus when Moses mentions cutting stones and carving wood. As you go through history, almost every civilization mentions carving wood, whether that's through weapons like arrows and spears or structures like gates and walls. In addition to the practical uses, woodcarving is also seen in art through carvings and sculptures that are still popular to this day, which is exactly what we'll be trying to make this week.
Before we even get started, I gotta say that when I was about 12, I tried to do a little wood carving once and immediately sliced my finger that still has the scar to prove it. So, before I even thought about picking up a piece of wood, I went straight to a pro on day 1 and learned how to not cut myself. And don't worry, if you're thinking of trying, I'll go over all of the safety tips. And secondly, wood carving, especially in the beginning, is gonna take a while, since you're gonna be super careful and slow at first. So most of my creations went over the usual hour. And without any further ado, let's carve some wood. Good morning and welcome to day number 1 of wood carving. Today, we're here with Dr. Science. And he's gonna be showing us the basics of how to carve some wood. Let's go.
Yay! Okay.
With the help of Dr. Science, we learned that wood carving and whittling are actually 2 different things. Wood carving uses knives, chisels, gouges, and other tools to create something, whereas whittling only uses a knife, which can reduce the amount of possibilities. So, since we were using a variety of tools, we learned how to carve a wood spirit. And before we even picked up a piece of wood, we went over what you'll need and how to carve safely. First off, you're gonna need a wood carving knife, which is a very fine knife that's sometimes laser sharpened when manufactured. So no, you can't use a kitchen knife. Secondly, depending on the type of project, you'll need a V gouge, which is like a knife in the shape of a V that helps with certain cuts. Next, you'll need a cutting glove for your non-dominant hand that should be worn at all times. On your cutting hand, they have thumb guards you can get, or even wrapping and gauze will work while you're carving. Once your gear is together, you'll need to learn how to handle the knife safely, which step number 1 is to never use a dull knife. It may come as a surprise, but a dull knife is actually more dangerous than a sharp one, because you'll be pressing extra hard and might slip and cut yourself. To keep your knife sharp, there's a special tool called a strop that can be made from ultrafine sandpaper or leather depending on the type. To sharpen your knives, what you would do is take the blade and point it away from you, put your finger flat against it to keep it even, and bring it in about 20 times. Once you're done, flip it where the blade's facing towards you, put your finger flat against it, and repeat another 20. We all know you should never cut towards yourself if possible, but some cuts require you to angle the knife in your direction, so just go extra slow and controlled on those cuts. Also, whenever you're carving and the wood is resisting, don't just press super hard or else the knife will go flying. What you can do is either stop and go sharpen it, or take your other thumb and use both to get a nice clean cut. Now that we know the rules, we began carving our wood spirit, which was actually a bit of a challenge for me. The reason being is I've never really carved wood before, so I had to get used to holding the knife and how much force is required for each cut. Overall, he came out pretty well, and thankfully wasn't missing any parts of his face. Hey guys, welcome to day number 2 of wood carving. Today, we'll be trying to make a simple wooden bear that Dr. Science even sketched out for us. Let's go. Considering this was only my 2nd day ever wood carving, I'd say the bear wasn't half bad. My biggest challenge was carving out certain parts like his face or ears and making them smooth. I found this difficult because on the face, his eyes and nose kept getting in the way, so I couldn't cut out the chunks horizontally. The other challenge I found was trying to keep his arms and legs centered and about the same size. The best way I found to fix this was to make your base sketch on the wood as even as possible and carve from there. Hello and welcome back to day number 3 of wood carving. Today, I'm going to be trying to make a little wooden squirrel out of this. Let's see how it goes. By the time day 3 rolled around, I was feeling a lot more comfortable carving wood. The squirrel itself is pretty simple, but has a few advanced cuts thrown in there like the V-cut, which gives definition to the tail, arms, and a few other places. The V-cut sort of works by drawing a line with the tip of the knife exactly where you want to cut it, then drawing another one slightly above or below it, making contact with the first cut. What's supposed to happen is your wedge comes out clean in one solid piece, although since my cuts weren't very accurate, the second slice usually didn't connect with the first, so I'd have to pick the pieces out, causing the cut to look a little messy. There were a few parts that could have been smoother, but overall, I'd say our squirrel was a success. Hello and welcome back to day number 4 of wood carving. Today, we've restocked on wood and we're going to be trying to make a smiling dwarf. Let's go. Alright, I take it back. This project took so long that I had to break it into 2 days. Part of the reason is because I used a lot bigger piece of wood than in the video and just scaled up my cuts, but spent a lot of time removing excess wood. To give you guys an idea of how long this was taking, after carving out just the base shape of his body and feet, then finishing the hat, I looked over and saw we made it 10 minutes into the 40-minute video, at nearly 2 hours of filming. So before losing what's left of my sanity, I decided to press pause and finish up tomorrow. We have made it to day number 5 of wood carving, and today, we're going to be turning the rest of this into a dwarf. Let's go. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, the final day took even longer than day 4, and there's still a lot of touch-up work that could have been done. We started the hour by defining the V-cut along his hat, then shaping out his torso and face. This project used a lot of precise V-cutting, which actually wasn't too bad since we were using a bigger piece of wood. The only issue I ran into was that our wood was a little bit longer than recommended, so our dwarf had a stand where his feet would normally go. After carving out the feet and giving definition to his arms and torso, we finished up by giving him some eyes and a little smile. And that is it for our week of wood carving. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'd rate the overall difficulty of this activity 5 out of 5 stars, with a few of the biggest challenges being able to hold and use the knife correctly, not cut yourself, and develop little techniques as you're carving, like holding the wood certain ways to help get the perfect cut. As you can tell, wood carving is an activity that requires a lot of patience and shouldn't be rushed, or else you might hurt yourself. If you want to give wood carving a go, in addition to never using a dull knife, you never want to use a cheap, no-name knife that can break apart and hurt you while carving. You always want to use a reputable knife brand like FlexCut or Beavercraft that I'll link in the description below. A decent beginner knife can cost you anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks and is typically used to carve basswood, which goes for around $15 to $20 for a pack. Always remember to think safety first when handling a knife or any tool that can harm you. And lastly, I want to give a big thank you to Dr. Science for teaching and letting us borrow some tools this week. Alright guys, that is it for episode 11 of Week Slam with your host, Sam. Don't forget to leave a comment below on what activity you want to see me try next, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share the video to help the channel grow. Thanks for watching and see you next week. But before you go, we're going to be spinning the viewer suggested Wheel of Slams to find out the final activity for Season 1. Let's spin this sucker one last time. Okay, our final episode is